Hey, everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network, and he proudly joins me for the first time in several weeks, maybe a couple of months it's been, Paul Daner Jr. of The Athletic. How you doing, Paul?
I've been counting down the days, Trags. Every day is like I wake up, I check my alarm that says, did Trags ask you to come on the podcast today? And then I have to answer it no. And then I wait for the alarm to go off the next day and ask me the same question. But I'm happy to finally be here.
So was that alarm going off the last couple of times I asked and you said, yeah, I don't have time for you, Trags. I got this commitment and that commitment.
Yeah. I've said no. I've said no when you did ask me. That's true. But now I'm here and I'm excited about it.
And I'm excited to talk some Bengals offseason footballs, OTAs. Phase 3, I guess, began on Tuesday. Actually, first time in helmets on Tuesday for the men in stripes. And Jamar Chase, after OTAs, he said a lot of things, Paul. He said a lot of things.
He's known to do that.
He is known to do that. 18 minutes. You know the thing that I was on 700 WLW Tuesday with Rocky Boyman. And I said to Rocky, one of the things I appreciate about Jamar Chase is that he doesn't give you stock answers. He actually thinks about what he wants to say and then articulates it with an incredible amount of passion. And I noticed that not when he was ripping our good colleague Butch Hobson of Bengals.com for showing up late, but when he was talking about flag football in the Olympics. And I don't know, you were there, right? And you heard the
for some of it. I didn't have the energy for the full 18 minutes of Jamar, but I was there for some of it, yeah.
Were you there for the Olympic part?
Yes.
Okay. So when he broke down what he has to consider before he's going to give his full support to actually possibly getting chosen to participate in the 2028 Olympics when it becomes an event. I found it fascinating. It just showed me that Jamar Chase doesn't give, one-word answers, stock answers. There's a lot he has to consider when thinking about joining the Olympics.
Well, I just think he's not afraid to be himself and say how he feels. Most of these guys are trying to uphold. They're worried about saying the wrong thing, or they have apprehension about what should I say, what shouldn't I say. And I would go back to Jamar's first time ever talking to us after he got drafted to say he's just not somebody who operates that way. He operates with I'm going to say what I feel. If I'm sitting here and I'm meeting the media in Cincinnati for the first time and sending my first message to Cincinnati fans, I'm going to say, I'm going to break all your records. That's how I feel. And if I feel like I want to make fun of Joe Burrow, I'm going to make fun of Joe Burrow. Like if I feel like I have some way that I feel about Triple Crown, I'm going to say something about it. And if I feel like they should throw me the ball deep more in my second game as a pro, I'm going to say it. Like if I think I'm always open, I'm going to say it. Like that's just, he just says what's on his mind. He doesn't really care about what people think about what he has to say. And it helps a little bit more when you're now paid and guaranteed enough around here that you can definitely say whatever you want to say and not have to worry about it. And I just feel like that's just kind of his personality a little bit, that he's not going to sit there and just make something up that he feels is right. All that he knows to do is to be honest and pretty unfiltered about the way he feels about it. And I think that came through in the Olympics talk.
I also think that he seemed, and it's very nuanced, very subtle, but I think he seemed more at peace when he spoke to us on Tuesday. Like he's got his money, like you said, and that's a big deal to him. He's not only got his money, his security, but he's got his respect. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Now he has to find that next chip on his shoulder, which I thought was interesting that he brought this up several times on Tuesday after the OTA practice. And I'm just curious from your point of view, Paul, how you think he goes about finding that chip. You've known him, very well and spoken to him many times in the 4 years he's been here.
Yeah. I think that there is still a championship. Oh, there I go.
Look at that. You go.
I just came up with that, right? Yeah. I mean, isn't that it? I mean, isn't that what it is, though? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the dude has checked every individual box. He's been the highest paid non-quarterback. He's got the triple crown. He's one of 6 people to ever do that. I mean, he's done so many of these things. They made it to the Super Bowl. They've had some semblance of success as a team. But I think the idea of legacy building, what him and Burrow have, there's only one thing left to do there, and that's to go win it all. And that's where that chip, I think, lies with both of them. Probably. It's just once you've been minted, so to speak, as the best, you don't need to fight that individual uphill, I'm here to prove it battle. Like, we heard so much from him last year. Like, yes, he was invested in the team's success, but I mean, there was so much of him chasing the triple crown and these numbers he was putting up and him wanting his money and he's worth, more, not just a penny more, brother, right? All of that stuff, like, was so much a part of his narrative, and I just don't know that really exists. It's the winning championships thing now that matters to him and to Joe, and they chase that as their next level. And I think that's probably it's the championship. It's what it is. I better not see that in one of your headlines now.
You will not.
You can't take that.
Not. I am finishing up my Jamar Chase column after I finish this
right.
award-winning high-level podcast. I will get to work on that, but I promise not to steal that from under your wings. About being a leader, Jamar Chase, the leader. I think he's always been quite kind of a subtle leader in that locker room, but he admitted Tuesday, it's going to come more to the forefront when he takes the mantle for guy or takes a leadership role for a guy like Jermaine Burton, who he was asked about. He's going to have to, and I think he wants to, become a little bit more of a voice, although he's not a super vocal guy. He wants to become more of a leader. He knows that comes with part of the contract that he got. And I'm just curious, from your point of view, Paul, how he is going to demonstrate that, exhibit that. Are we going to notice any differences in Jamar Chase, the leader, maybe the captain, as opposed to Jamar Chase, the superstar receiver?
I just think it's a little bit more ownership over the total direction of the team. I mean, I think when you're chasing that money and you haven't been rewarded yet, especially when you're fighting with ownership about it, it's a little bit more of me and the offense and not as much about the we, I guess, as a whole. But Jamar has always been a great leader to me, and they talked a lot last year about how he might not have had the C on his chest, but the way that he practices, the way that he plays, how much the tone that he sets by showing this is what it looks like to be the best. It is leadership, but I think taking a little bit more ownership over the total direction, like we saw him talking to the safeties during yesterday's, right? And he talked about that a little bit and helping them a little bit more with stuff that they're doing and help the defense out and being willing to be, it's not just going in there and being rah-rah, but understanding that the message that you can be out there promoting and trying to help everybody in the building and just being a little more cognizant of that on top of everything he kind of already was. It's not like he needs to change anything. I just think it's more of the mindset of, hey, I'm here, man. I'm invested. I am, this is where my money lives and my legacy is invested in this place. So I'm going to do everything I can and give every bit of help that I can to everybody across the building to make this place what I would like it to be. And I think that's where it comes from.
You think it matters that he gets a C this year, an offensive captain?
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
I do. I mean, it was talked about last year about, it was almost a thing like, I know I don't have the C on my chest, but I really feel like I am a captain. And that didn't just come from him. That came from Zach Taylor. And inevitably, I think that's going to be reflected in, because it is players voting. And I think that he earned it. And I think that is part of what comes with the contract. People do look up to him. And so I think that's an easy thing to see. I think it would be really interesting that we see what became the staple of those last 5 games last year be where the captains come from, was T, Joe, and Jamar all getting C's as like, look, these are our guys. Like, this is who we trot out. This come get us, right? That was the theme of the end of last season. You never know how those votes will go and they distribute, but I mean, to me, I look at that and say these are people that are all in and invested here and believing it, and this is who we are as a team, as the Bengals. They should have C's on their chest. So I'd be curious to see if even T ends up in the middle of that too.
It's got to make Joe Burrow feel really good, even though it's only OTAs, to see Jamar and T both on the practice field at this point of the offseason, knowing that those two guys are locked up, and those are obviously two massive pieces of the offense. To see that, I don't know, Joe Burrow hasn't had that security, I don't think, long-term security of what this offense is going to be going forward for many years, and now he's got that again. I think that's a big deal to Burrow.
I think their presence and being there and being on board with everything is worth more than any of the actual practice. Like, I mean, I just think it's just there they are. You know, I always say, to me, the most influential thing is the rookies that walk into that locker room for the first time or in their first year. Who do they walk in the room and say, whoa, I want to be like, there's that guy. I want to be like that guy. No matter how confident they are coming from college, like, you walk in and there's Joe Burrow, right? There's that guy, right? Or maybe it was Sam Hubbard here, or Trey Hendrickson, or whoever is the star, and Jamar is amongst those. And so I just think when they're there, and you're seeing how they work from your first OTA practice, phase 2 practice on through training, you're seeing that, and they're all there, fully invested. You're seeing their work ethic. You want to replicate that. You want to follow that lead.
Right.
And if you can have those people there, fully invested, replicable, then I think when you have that, it does help that leadership mold and the raising all boats for young players to follow in their footsteps.
He is Paul Dehner, does an amazing job covering all things Cincinnati Bengals for The Athletic. By the way, please pump and promote some of the podcasts, the great podcast, the Growler Podcast Network. We'll begin with that.
Yeah, we have a bunch of pods now. I can hardly keep up. There's so many names, but which is just the running joke at this point. But no, I mean, we have a steady feed right now of myself, Jay, Charlie Goldsmith, Mo Egger, Mark Shalafou, local comedian who joins for Who Day Light on Fridays, which is kind of a lighter side, little something for everybody in the Growler. And then Charlie Goldsmith and Brian Giesenslaw do a great job on Power Stacks.
The Stacks, great name.
Which is
fabulous
our new Reds podcast. That they are another Power Stack. The Power Stacks bump is becoming a thing. They did a Will Benson episode right before his breakout, and then they did a whole thing on the Brady Singer Jonathan India trade right before that, which Charlie did great work researching on that, a deep dive into the background on how that trade came to be and Brady Singer, and then he goes and has a great night last night. So the Power Stacks bump becoming a thing. So if you want to know who the next great player is going to be, just listen, because they probably have a deep dive coming up on them soon.
He is Paul Dehner. For those of you listening to this very show, the Jungle Roar podcast, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the CLNS Media and Cincinnati Sports Studio on the YouTube channel, where you can find our show and lots of other great Bengals content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. Back with Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic and the Growler Network, Podcast Network. About Joe Burrow, what were your biggest takeaways? I haven't spoken to you since last week, and I was out of town. What were your biggest takeaways from what Burrow had to say beyond his comments about the Netflix show?
Yeah. Well, I guess this goes, it's in the same general area. I'm just fascinated by Joe Burrow off the field right now. I don't know. Like, I think I know what he is as a player. Like, we know what he is as a player at this point. We know who he is inside the locker room. He's Joe Burrow. He's been everything at any organization could have ever asked for, and he's going to win an MVP one day. He's going to win a Super Bowl one day. I know that, but what we don't know is how he's going to approach his life off the field, which he's very interested in these cool doors that are now open to him. I mean, he is. I mean, we see him in Paris. We see him at the Met Gala. We see him doing more public-facing, forward-facing things like quarterback. But this is an insanely private person and someone who had his privacy violated last year.
Yep.
And trying to maneuver through that and walk that fine line of, I'm a private person, but I want to live my life as a 28-year-old and explore these cool opportunities and this cool thing that this public life does afford me. And I just find it really interesting. It's like watching anybody that grow up and evolve as they go through their 20s and have opportunities in front of them. He's just a much bigger stage and a much, much more public figure, but like, he's kind of figuring that out as he goes. And I find it interesting to watch him talking about looking for ways to go into this public life with people and situations that he feels like he can trust, whether that's Peyton Manning or the draw of the Met Gala being that once you get through the pictures, you end up in this room of people who don't give a damn that you're Joe Burrow because they just met someone more famous 5 seconds ago. And being in that world is really freeing and private for him. And it makes him feel more normal when it's just really hard for him to feel normal. Like, he can't just go to the Applebee's on Fields Erdel, like he can't just go be living this normal life. And I find him talking about that and his need to try to find trusted privacy and and also do fun things, a really fascinating thing to watch him maneuver. Because I know we get the field now. I think it's interesting to watch him be willing to do this stuff that puts himself out there more often.
What strikes me, Paul, is that Joe Burrow never seems overwhelmed. And he very well may have a lot on his mind, like when he went through what you said, the invasion of his privacy in December last year when the team was in Dallas. But even then, when he came back home, he didn't seem overwhelmed, and he didn't seem really caught off guard, like mentally. He never seemed out of his element.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating that a guy can have such internal self-control like that. That's what, to me, when people ask sometimes what makes Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow, it's that. It's the ability to stay calm, stay cool, Joe Cool, all the time, no matter the circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, his leadership style has always been this quiet, confident, easy, even keel like demeanor. And guys connect with that. What I thought was interesting was, he can find that in what he is off the field in terms of, this thing's going to happen to me over here, but I can go to work and I can be myself. We don't know what he's like behind closed doors when that stuff happens. Maybe we'll learn more about it on quarterback, but I just think it's really cool to see his ability to understand, like, it's not going to affect me every day. And it's this, I think Jamar said he might be the only person more stubborn than me or something like that at one point. And it's like, you can see that stubborn nature in Burrow. Like, I'm not going to let them rattle me in my game. Like, I'm going to show up at work and I'm going to be about the work, and you're going to see me in there grinding all year long. And I'm going to care about that no matter what is happening off the field. And I do think that kind of, it drives him in a stubborn way that no one's getting me off my game. And you're going to get that from Burrow. It's much like, somebody you're familiar with. Thomas Brady.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I was
right?
going to bring that
know.
up, but
I don't
why
know.
I didn't
I don't know.
You know why I didn't do that, Paul.
Do you know much about, like, kind of how he went about his business at all, or you ever heard of him?
So there are similarities in the public spotlight between Burrow and Brady, but I think Brady was more about the brand, Tom Brady, as his career evolved. I don't think Joe Burrow has a brand that he is out there pushing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe feel free, Paul, to disagree with that. But Burrow strikes me as a guy that give me my life and my lifestyle, but I don't need a brand. I don't need to be pushing the business. Go ahead.
Yeah, I partially agree with that. I do think when he says, I found it really interesting when he says, I have cared about growing the game internationally. You did? I didn't know that. Like, so maybe some of this
Yeah.
stuff that he's done, I think he views himself, he loves the idea of being kind of a global ambassador a little bit with the stuff in Paris, the wanting to play internationally, the caring about that and making the Bengals more global. Like, that's really cool. And I think that is part of his brand, that he is unique and he's not going to be the one. I mean, when have you ever heard a guy be like, I want an international game? Like, these guys, that's the last thing that they want. They don't want any of that. But here, that's what he wants. Yeah, I think he appreciates the unique nature of people from other places that have different backgrounds. And I remember when he was talking about Trey Hendrickson and how he appreciates how unique he is. And he's never, not having known anybody like them. That's part of what draws Joe to people and places and things, is he really appreciates unique, because he is. I think he values that in himself. It helps him connect across the locker room that way. And I think that's kind of part of why I think that's part of his brand is be unique, do good, global ambassador stuff. I think he kind of does that intentionally while being subtle about it. I don't think it's something he's pushing, and so it doesn't come across as not, beating people over the head with TB12, right? But I do think it is willingness to be out there and say that I appreciate unique, and I want to be, I don't mind being global, and I want to do good, and all of that stuff that he's done now off the field.
Also, Joe Burrow, speaking of the Bengals quarterback, received an honor this week from our organization, the Pro Football Writers of America, the George Halas Award for overcoming adversity as it related to the 2024 season, coming back from really a unique wrist surgery, an unprecedented wrist surgery. I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that's putting it the way it should, putting it in perspective the way it should be put in perspective. No quarterback had ever come back from that kind of surgery, performed at the level that he did, which was, I think, an MVP level. But I thought the award, as much as it recognized 2024, I think it was a lifetime achievement award to this point in his career, because look at what he's come back from, Paul. I mean, there's the knee, the calf, the wrist, and what else am I forgetting? I think there's
the appendectomy.
The appendectomy, right. So those four major issues that he has had to go through in the first, 5 years of his career. I think, certainly the award, the distinction that he received from the Pro Football Writers was obviously well-deserved.
Well, and even go back to his college days. I mean, having to sit and not play and transfer and everything that he went through just to have his breakout season in 2019. It's just kind of who he is. That's his path. It seems like it's always his path is the hard way. He's kind of had to do that and relish that and been really damn good at it, at understanding how to take on rehab, how to take on, the decision to transfer and rebuild in a new place, and how to approach a team that has struggled early and dig them out every year too, in the same respect. I just feel like you see that as a core part of his personality, that is who he is, that there's no obstacle that he's not going to say, oh, watch me overcome this one. Unprecedented. I don't care. But be honest about it. I mean, I go back to this time last year, he was talking about football mortality and coming to grips with his football mortality through the wrist injury. That's how serious this was. This could end me. I don't know what's going to happen here. We don't know the results. This is not something that quarterbacks have had to deal with. You can ask around. It was easy for him to call people about the calf. It was easy for people to follow in line of what Nick Cosgray told him with the ACL. It was easy to do all those things, even with the appendectomy. Like you knew what you needed to do. This was unprecedented. It made him question whether this could end him. And he came out after he got through it, that first month of kind of starting to really trust his wrist again. And he started ripping it, and he played as good as ever. And that is just always going to be remarkable to me. He's totally deserving in every way. I know the last thing he wants is to win another Comeback Player of the Year award, but I have no doubt that if something happened to him, he would. I think the next award he wins, do you get to hand him a plaque? Do you get to hand him the plaque? Is there a
This
plaque?
particular plaque, that those details are being
I'd love
worked
for
out.
you to get, as my president, I'd love for you to be able to hand him the plaque. But the next one I think that you'll hand him will be for an MVP.
MVP. Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's the next award that he will win. And I don't know that it's a hot take to say that it feels like an MVP award is in his very near future in the next year or two.
All right. I get asked this day after day after day, and we'll continue to be asked this, and I'm sure you do too. Shamar Stewart and Demetrius Knight Jr. Why is Shamar Stewart? They both have not signed their rookie year deals, but Demetrius Knight Jr. was on the field during OTAs on Tuesday, and obviously Shamar Stewart not taking part. The difference between the two, and when do you think both of them get signed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's willingness to sign whatever waiver or deal with whatever language is in there for Shamar compared to Demetrius, and there's obviously differences when you get into first round pick slots and language. I'm on the record. I think this is stupid for everyone. I think this is totally silly. I think that it's just none of this. Just fix it and get it done.
It's unnecessary.
Right? It's unnecessary. I also, my take on this is that no one will ever remember that this happened. He'll sign at some point before training camp. He'll have a normal training camp. No one will talk about the OTAs that he didn't take part in. There's just people really overvalue what's actually happening out there. I mean, there's just not. It's an hour on the field. He's doing everything else, and yeah, there's some value. I'm not saying nothing. It's just it's not going to make or break his rookie year. The fact that he is watching some of these drills. If we get to training camp and we're still dealing with this, my tone will be different. I don't think that will be the case. I think we'll get to training camp and this will have long been an afterthought, and no one, by the time he's doing whatever he's doing in week 8, no one will even remember whether this happened or not.
All right. I want to get to a story that you worked up for today's Athletic, and it's up there now, about defensive tackle Eric Gregory. Why did this story stand out to you?
So it's sort of I love talking to some of the undrafted guys. Their backgrounds are always so interesting. And I found Eric Gregory and Howard Cross and Demetrius Knight in a way to be really a unique trend in the NFL. We're seeing this really start to truly bubble up now to have an impact. These older players, NIL, and the COVID year combined. I mean, you have all these guys turning 25 this season as rookies. It's not something that you normally see or you used to see. It used to be the ultimate red flag. But how the Bengals have kind of viewed it and weaponized it a little bit has been the maturity and experience that these guys bring help in positions where you need something now, okay? You need somebody who comes in polished, ready-made to be a player of some sort. In the case of Demetrius Knight, it's to be a starting linebacker. He did it at South Carolina. He's got tons of experience. He's mature. He's a leader. He's all of those things. He shows up, and you can count on him to be reliable day one, unlike most rookies. Eric Gregory is the same way. Eric Gregory was on the field playing against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in 2019 against LSU in the battle for the Golden Boot. I don't know if you're familiar with the battle for the Golden Boot, but my first job was in a newspaper in Arkansas, and my first big assignment was covering the game when it was held in Little Rock back in the day. And so it was, but I'm very familiar with this rivalry, which is one. But now Arkansas got whipped, but Eric Gregory was on the field again. That feels like ages ago.
It does.
And now he's a rookie on their team. He spent 6 years at Arkansas. He's going to be 25 the day before the home opener. But he has 61 games playing for Arkansas in the SEC under his belt, 44 starts. He was solid, productive. He got better every year. He was a leader. He has a daughter named Aurora. He's got a second on the way. He's a father. He's like learned to be mature and handle his business. And it allows him to show up in the typical undrafted defensive tackle profile is, I don't know, see if maybe he can throw some of his raw skills together. And in a couple of years, you can have something. He can be a depth role piece for you quickly because he shows up prepared to do that. He's got all this experience and maturity that benefits him in this moment and the Bengals in this moment because the Bengals need someone to do that because they didn't draft a defensive tackle. They need somebody who could come in and be a little more polished to maybe be a depth piece immediately. He could do that. Howard Cross can do that in the same way from Notre Dame, who was, there for 6 years. The last 3 years under Al Golden. He's got experience. He was a captain. He was a second-team All-American. Yeah, didn't get drafted, but you bring that type of player in now, which there's tons of them now in this new wave of the college landscape, and they can fit a role in a specific way. You're not finding stars necessarily, but you can find serviceable role players and take advantage of them to be fast-tracked to impact your team earlier. And the Bengals need that right now at both defensive tackle and at linebacker. And I think it's interesting that they've kind of had to tap into that profile to maybe get a little 2025 impact.
I think it's the perfect, ideal offseason story, Paul. I loved reading it. I really did. I enjoy stories like that because it always makes me think, well, does this young guy, and he's 24, going to be 25, like you said before opening day, does he have a realistic chance of making the roster? To me, that's what makes, when you get to training camp, that's what makes training camp interesting at this point.
Yeah, Muma Jong Meta is a great example of that from last year. A guy who had a bunch of experience in college, a little bit more mature, older player, came in and made an impact. He was prepared to make an impact immediately and impressed enough to make the team and play a very valuable role on special teams. That's the Bengals have proven year in and year out that they will do that. They will clear that path. They don't care where you came from. They'll put you in there. And I'm telling you right now, I would mark that baby down. Gregory or Cross are making this team. Like I mean, I guess we'll see. Unless I think they're looking to add a defensive tackle of some sort. But I think there's a lot of hope that one of those two guys is going to be part of the answer to giving them one last depth piece at defensive tackle where they didn't address it in the draft.
Are they going to do the same at safety? Bring in somebody? Are they going to sign somebody?
I don't think so.
Boy, I'm stunned by that, Paul. I really am. The assumption was no safety in free agency. They didn't draft a safety when they had the opportunity to do so. Certainly, an upper level second or third round, say they could have taken one in the first round, but second or third round, certainly. And they decided against it.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think that was on the table as a draft pick. But as a veteran, I think they find themselves in a bit of a bind in their mind in terms of that backup playing special teams. They're really low on special teamers because their tight ends are all non-special teams contributors, basically. Outside of, I guess, Drew Sample, but he's a starter almost. So when you don't have that, you really rely on those safeties to play teams. If you sign Justin Simmons or insert available vet here, are they going to be interested in coming to sign here and be relegated to special teams?
No.
Right.
No.
Well, and so I think that it's a bit of a bind in that regard, that they need special teams impact out of those backups, but there's got to be anxiety about the fact their backups are Tyson Anderson
and Dejon
Anthony.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those things that you would have preferred to address with the draft pick. And heaven forbid we go back to the fact that they didn't have enough draft picks or didn't do enough in free agency so that they were hamstrung in the draft, having to check too many boxes, which is how they ended up in this spot in the first place at defensive tackle, at safety, and at linebacker.
By the way, that also explains why I think they could, we always talk about draft picks almost assuredly having a spot on the roster. Well, when you have only 6 draft picks, that means 3 undrafted free agents. You're looking at least 2 to 3 of those guys making the roster probably because of that.
Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. I think, to me, I view Gregory as their seventh round pick. I think if they had a seventh round pick, they would have taken him. I think, you can see that in the UDFA money they gave him, and I think that they value him and see him as a potential guy who can come in and have an impact. So I think I almost view him as the seventh round pick. Now that doesn't mean anything. Seventh rounders get cut all the time, but I think they opened up the pathway for that to happen, and it certainly could.
One more time, Paul, please do plug everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Check me out, The Athletic, of course, as always, and then follow the Growler Podcast. You on where all your socials are at, the TikToks, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, you name it, we're everywhere. The Growler Podcast and myself, and you can check all our pods out there. Go to the YouTube channel. So while you're done, make sure you subscribe and like everything Trags has here, and then go over and go to the Growler YouTube page. Do the same thing. Comment, give us all those good reviews. Those help everybody, myself, Track, so that we can keep bringing you all this great, unique Bengals coverage.
You have just clinched your spot in a future podcast appearance on the Jungle Roar podcast.
Hold on, let me set my alarm. I'm setting my alarm. Okay, every day I will wait it. I will await your request.
Does that alarm have a period of, what's the term? What's the legal term?
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Does it? No, probably not.
Yeah, it is set to end in 3 months. So
okay. Well,
so if
I'm pretty sure
3 months, I'm out.
I'm pretty sure you'll be on within the next 3 months. All right. He's Paul Danner Jr. of The Athletic. My name is Mike Petralia. Trags, thanks once again for downloading this episode of the Jungle Roar Podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Until next time, Paul knows this.
Keep that jungle roaring. Rawr.